What do you think, looking back over the last few weeks in particular, what do you think have been the biggest misconceptions about you?
Well, I think there's a left agenda to silence anyone that goes against the agenda. Let's go back to Trump running for office back in 2015. Everyone that was around me in my industry, in the entertainment industry, told me that my life would be over. I would be on the wrong side of history. I've even had threats to my life for wearing the Trump hat. And it even ended up in, destroying my family and also making it where I have to raise my children differently because I actually am a person that's classified as black. I classify myself as Jew, but.
See here now, when Kanye is talking about this left agenda, he's talking about the Democratic Party, who he feels has an agenda to destroy him, destroy his character, to destroy everything he represents, and to make him seem like he has some type of a mental illness or some type of a lack of thought to even be talking. So that's what he means when he's about the left that has an agenda, and he feels like he's supporting the right, which is a more conservative, which is more of the Republican Party. So we all know that Kanye is a Trump supporter. He's a friend of Donald Trump. He wore the MAGA hat, Make America Great. A lot of people were upset about that. He feels he's being attacked because of that. And I guess what Kanye is saying, that he has a right to his opinion, his choice. He has a right to be Republican if he chooses so. He has a right to vote for the right wing. And I agree with him. I mean, we all have a choice if we want to be Democratic or if we want to be Republican. That's your choice. Even I'm not political, but he has a right. So he feels like the left is trying to silence him. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. So, and also, when Kanye also calls himself Jew, he's right. He's absolutely right. And even when he says it, he said it in the Drink Champ interview. He says this a lot, but you never heard anyone debate what he said. You never heard the people in the industry debate what he was saying when he called himself a Jew, and that's a reason. What Kanye is referring to, he's referring to biblical text. He's referring to the biblical text in the Bible. I'm not going to get too deep into this because you guys can do your own research, but in the Bible, there were 12 tribes of Israel, which, according to the Bible, God chosen to be his chosen people. And they come from a lineage. A lineage of people are a lineage of Abraham. Like I said, I'm not going to go too deep into this. You guys do your own research. But in one of them 12 tribes and others, there was a distinctive tribe. And that distinctive tribe was called the tribe of Judah. And one of the reasons that made them distinctive is because that they were black people. They were indeed black people. If you don't believe it, you could do your own research. You can go to the biblical text. You can trace the lineage, and you will find out that these people were indeed black, dark-skinned people. Like I said, I'm not going to go into much detail, but if you really want to know, you can do your own research to find out. So like I said before, when Kanye talks about this, no one is debating Kanye on this, because they know if they truly do their research and they truly want the truth, they can go to that biblical text. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, it's there. So that's what Kanye is talking about. What do you guys think? Do you think that the left is trying to silence Kanye because they want to keep black people for voting for Republicans, so they want that vote so they can continue to be in office? What you guys think? Let me know. Let's continue with the interview.
But a person is classified that had been given that title in America as black, in America, that I'm supposed to stay in a block of a vote. You never heard the term white vote. So why is there a term black vote? How is that okay? It sounds just as racist as a black drinking.
Now this is something significant that Kanye is talking about. What do you guys think about politicians calling the black vote? I mean, does he have a point? Because we don't hear. I mean, do we really hear people say the white vote, the Indian vote, the Russian vote? You know, what do you think about this? I mean, he said this is just as racist as the segregation days back like in the 1950s. You know, when they separated water and fountain, saying blacks drink out of here, whites drink out of here. It's just another way for politicians to call separation. It's just another way for the media to call separation, calling it the black vote. I mean, does Kanye have a point? What he's saying? Does the media really control our way of thinking? Because a lot of us, and I'm gonna just keep it real, I do it myself. Sometimes I say things I don't know where these words are coined from. We just saying because the media throws it out there. We see it on TV, we see it in the newspaper. So is Kanye saying that the media is throwing things out there, you know, subliminal messages, and it's causing us just to say things that we're not really taking to thought to really ask ourselves, why are we using this word? Why are we using this term? So, I mean, is he making a little bit of sense? I understand where he's coming from. You know, is it a way to separate us? I mean, what you guys think? Let's continue with the interview.
As racist as a black drinking fountain. And my dad, you know, called me and said, you know, the thing that the left fear about Ye or makes me the most dangerous is I'm rich. And that's the point. Tupac told me back in the days, you know, you had to get your money right and then you go to war. So I'm going to war. You know, I don't have endless resources. I only have like maybe, you know, honestly.
So here Kanye's talking about he has no fear at all, that he holds to his convictions, he holds what he believes in. And he also talks about he has his money right. And we all know if you want to do things in this world, you gotta have your finances right. You gotta be financially secure. I mean, it may not be war in a physical sense. It could be in a spiritual sense. It could be you just trying to go out there and wake people up by speaking your truth. So we all know that money definitely plays a part. It plays a part in when you want to accomplish a goal. We know that. I mean, many of us have experienced that. We experienced that when in our jobs that we may have hated the boss and we couldn't, you know, we couldn't really say what we wanted to say because we knew that we needed that money. Our money wasn't right. Our finances wasn't right. So because of that, we pretty much we took the crap because our finances weren't right and our money weren't right. So here's Kanye saying he got his money right, so he can afford the backlash. I mean, he's been canceled. A lot of people have not invited him on his show, so he's been canceled. I think he's lost endorsements, so that hurts. But because he invested in something, he has his money right, he has the ability to speak freely. And I think that's something we all should look at. That's something that we should take heart to. We should look at that because a lot of us do not speak up for what is right because we are afraid. And this is something that I see Kanye talking about. I mean, finances are very, very, very important. You know, we don't want to be treated like douchebags at our job because, you know, someone feel like they have the capacity to do it and we just got to take it because they know that we don't want to lose our jobs, so we have a family to feed. So finances is very important, you know. And just to kind of let you guys know, he references that, you know, Tupac. He referenced Tupac when he says, I got my money right now, I'm ready for war. It's in a very, very, very famous hit song of Tupac that's called Against All Odds. Listen to it, look it up, go Tupac, Google it, YouTube it. Tupac, Against All Odds. He's talking about his enemies. And at the end of that song, Against All Odds, Tupac, he talks and he says that from one of his enemies, said, you said to get my money right? He said, I got my money right. Now I'm ready for war. So Kanye is a big Tupac fan. He talks about it a lot. He talks about Tupac and the Drink Champs. He talks about even if he goes, it's going to be a young Pac, a young Martin, a young Kanye that's going to rise up if anything happens to him. You know, so I think that's very, it's very interesting that Kanye, you know, brought that Tupac verse up. And Pac's been gone for a long time, and people are still mentioning him. So that says a lot about the revolutionary mind of Tupac Shakur. So let's continue with this interview.
I don't have endless resources. I only have like maybe, honestly, only maybe $120 million in my account. But what I'm not going to let happen is I'm not going to let my kids take over Yeezy someday and have a boardroom telling them what to do and talking behind their back. I'm not going to let that happen to my children. So I have to fight right now. And the other powerful icon.
Now, what is Kanye talking about when he talking about he's not gonna, if he can help it, he's not gonna have his kids grow one day and be at some boardroom and people talking about their backs and talking down on them because they're black. Kanye in other interviews has talked about how racist the industry is when it comes to black people having success. So he's really saying regardless of his success or not what he's saying, but what he's saying is other people that are probably non-black, regardless of a black man's success, you're still an N-word, you're still an N-I-G-G-A, like regardless. And that's what Kanye said he's not gonna have. He refuses that to happen to his kids. He talks about that he's experienced that. Like, he has all this creativity in his company, a lot of ownership in these companies, and he's still treated with indignity. He's still treated with injustice. He's being talked about behind his back, and he refuses that to happen to his black children. What do you guys think about that? Any of us, whether white or black, I don't think talk about anybody's back because of their skin color is something that's conducive or something that's not right. That's not right at all. No one should be talked about. So here Kanye's talking about he's refusing, and that's why he's putting up this fight. He sees that in Hollywood. He sees that's where he is, and he's not gonna allow that to happen to his black kids. He's fighting. He's fighting for that. So he wants a piece, as he always saw. He wants a piece of the pie. He wants to be treated equal. So what you guys think? Let's continue.
And the other powerful icons in black music, when they were at the top of the game, they didn't fight at that point. They were too afraid of losing whatever they had. So by the time they wanted to make a difference, by the time Bill Cosby wanted to buy NBC, he didn't have the Cosby Show at that time to be able to stand up when they wanted to literally throw him in jail, where they actually did throw him in jail. So people have to understand just the bravery. There's so many people everywhere. I know everyone can relate to being afraid to say what you're going to feel because you feel like you're going to lose something. So whether you agree with me or not, I believe people are going to feel the fact that someone is brave enough to say something. Every day I do 5 things that people have been historically killed for. Every day. And it's just.
So now here is Kanye's talking about injustice. He brought up Bill Cosby. He's talking about people in the industry who may have saw injustice, but were scared to fight. And what I'm getting what Kanye saying was because of retaliation. This is real, because I can tell you by experience. We all know that if you stand up for certain things in this world, that sometimes people retaliate against you, sometimes physically, sometimes spiritually. But I can tell you by experience. I remember one time, I worked for the government in D.C., and our employer did a lot of unjust things, such as, not pay people when they worked super overtime, or unjustly suspended someone for being on their phone, but didn't suspend the other person, or didn't suspend the girl who was on the phone too, maybe because the supervisor liked them. It was a lot of unjust stuff going around. But because people were afraid to speak up, because they were afraid to be retaliated against, they never spoke up. You know what I'm saying? Or they were afraid to be unjustly fired. All this because they didn't have, like Kanye said earlier, their money right. So they saw a lot of injustice. They didn't speak up. They just sat there. They just took it. So I remember I was the shop steward. So I always stood up. Regardless if I was the shop steward, I always stood up for what is right. I never believed that if you saw something that was injustice or unjust, that you should sit there. That's just not my spirit, guys. And I pay for it, but I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it because now I know I have a clearer conscience. Let me tell you a story. Like I said, I always believe that you should stand up for what is right. I remember one time the company used one of my colleagues or employees who worked with me to lie on me. And that employee that they used, because I was standing up for a lot of injustice, they used that employee to lie on me. I never did anything to this employee, and the company actually fired me. So that was, that was a learning point. That was a very learning point in my life. When I knew that people were so afraid that they will allow injustice just to go on because they were afraid. Long story short, I sued the company, and they offered me a more higher paying position, but at a different location, which I declined. I mean, I didn't want to work for this company. I was just done. I was done with the people who worked for the company. I was just kind of done with people all around. I mean, just saw that people were just afraid, and most people were black. And I mean, I get it. So I definitely understood what was going on. I definitely knew where they were coming from. It's just, so when Kanye's talking, he's just talking about it on a bigger scale. He's just talking about it on a bigger scale. Bill Cosby, all of them. I mean, even though these people have millions of dollars, they still have bosses. They still have bills they have to pay, so a lot of them may not feel like standing up because they don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their talk show they have, their show that they have. It's a lot. But here Kanye saying he's standing up regardless. He's standing up regardless. There's a saying, there's a scripture, there's a saying, a biblical saying, and it says that he who should save his life should lose it, and he who loses his life should save it. So I think that if anyone sees some type of injustice, you should speak up, regardless if you're standing alone. Speak up. Because just because people aren't standing with you does not mean that you're wrong. I'm going to say that again. Just because people aren't standing with you does not mean that you're wrong. Remember that. So stand up. Let's continue with this interview.
Killed for every day. And it's just, I want to prove, first of all, I am Jew also. The 12 lost tribes of Hebrew. Do the math. Do your research on it. We have got our culture ripped from us and then told we were just simply void of color, which is another definition for black. But if we knew we were a culture and knew we were a people, the way the Jewish people know, then we wouldn't abort ourselves.
Now, I find this deep. Kanye said we have been stripped from our culture as black people and have been called black, which means void of color. Do you guys believe that black people have been stripped of their culture and been coined the term black, which in all actuality, it does mean void of color? I find it interesting because when you hear things like the black hole, I mean, we know the black hole is something that is void of anything. Or we hear the black room, which is void of light, or the dark room, which is void of light. Even in the Bible, what Kanye is talking about, he talks about the 12 tribes of Hebrew, which were called black people, which are black people. But when we think about that, in the biblical text, they weren't called black. So what were they called? So this term black is, who coined this term black? Where does this come from? That what Kanye saying, which all it means is devoid of color. So we've been stripped of our culture and we allow people to call us black. Where does this come from? Where does this word black people come from? Or black? That means devoid of color. That's something that I need to think about. That's something that I just thought about, listening to this interview. So that I find that very, very, very interesting. It's a term. It's a term that's coined, a type of people. I mean, where does it come from? Has the media put that out there so much that we don't even question it? Let me know. Let me know what you think as we continue to watch this interview.
we wouldn't abort ourselves. We wouldn't shoot each other dead in the streets and then rap about it. We wouldn't brag about, having sex with each other's wives. We would keep our families together and we would do business together.
Now, here's Kanye saying, because we've been stripped of our culture, we don't know who we are. And that's why we do the things we do. And that's why we rap about the things we rap about. And that's one of the big reasons the way we treat each other horribly is because we don't respect ourselves. We don't respect our women. We don't believe in family. What do you guys think? Is that the reason why black people treat each other, because we've been stripped of our culture, because we don't know who we are, and we allow other people to come in and monetize off our pain, off our struggle, off our inventions? What do you guys think? I find that very interesting that Kanye brought this up, and partly I agree with him on that. Black people have been stripped of their culture, and it's something that I feel that has been a big impact on black people and causing a lot of abject areas in almost every city or across the world. What do you guys think? You guys agree with Kanye?
Sex with each other's wives. We would keep our families together and we would do business together. The most dangerous place for a black person in America is actually in our mother's stomachs, because 50% of black deaths a year in America is abortion currently. I mean, I can keep going, but I want to make it, hey, boom, ask me questions, let's go.
I don't want to jump in too much, because here's what I honestly think. I think you have an extraordinary mind. You have a number of extraordinary talents. You're a musical genius. You're a fascinating public figure. What has been interesting to me is to watch the furore which has erupted in the last few weeks over a series of statements that you've made, which have caused, as you know, a lot of offence. And I guess before I get into them, I'm just curious as to whether you think there is a line for free speech. Listen, I completely agree with you that there is a war against free speech, that people are, treading on eggshells all the time, terrified of expressing honestly held opinions in case they get cancelled. I think we're living in a really insidious era where liberals are behaving like fascists. So on that, you have absolutely my agreement. But my question for you is, do you believe there are limits to free speech? And if they are, what are they?
There are no limits to free speech. It's all context, right? Tarantino can write a movie about slavery where actually him and Jamie, they got the idea from me, because the idea for Django, I pitched to Jamie Foxx and Quentin Tarantino as the video for Gold Digger. And then Tarantino turned it into a film. But in that film, he puts a context, he creates a context where Leonardo DiCaprio is allowed to use the word multiple times within that context. So Hollywood's job is to frame things, and they allow what context, what content is accepted and what's not. We have our thoughts.
Now, I found this very, very, very interesting on what Kanye said. He said freedom of speech, there's no limit to freedom of speech, but it's just about the context. Let's get deep into what he's saying, guys. Like I said, I find it significant because I definitely believe in freedom of speech as long as you're not slandering anyone or falsely accusing anyone. Kanye here says that in the movie The Django, that was directed by Quentin Tarantino, in the screenplay that Leonardo DiCaprio used the N-word multiple times with no problem. Now, when Kanye is saying context, he's saying what he's really saying is should Leonardo DiCaprio be able to use that? We all know the N-word is a derogatory term, and that is definitely hate speech. It's a term that should not be used against black people or African Americans or however you want to call it. But here in his movie, Kanye is saying that you have a white man or a white guy who's able to use this word multiple times. He's able to say the Nigga word. So here he has this free speech to use the N-word. So Kanye saying, so we get to pick and choose when we want to utilize this freedom of speech to make derogatory terms towards a certain group of people. So that's what Kanye's saying. He said Hollywood frames things where they put things in a certain box where it's okay. So what Kanye's saying, when he says something, it's a problem. But in the movie, because it's just a movie, we can use the N-word because it's a movie. But I mean, that's interesting. What do you guys think? I mean, because at the end of the day, should we be using that word? Period. I get it. It's just a movie, but does Hollywood do that? Does Hollywood frame things and put things in certain contexts just to desensitize the people to make you think, oh, it's okay? But then when you said outside of this context, oh, now it's an issue. But we're saying it regardless. Let's look at the Aries Spirits. Didn't Aries Spirits and Tiffany Haddish just get in trouble because they made like a skit on a kid being molested? I didn't see it. I heard about it. You guys will tell me more about it in the comments. So if they got in trouble making a skit in that context, no one's really being molested, but they got in trouble for that. They got backlash for that. So shouldn't that be applied to someone using the N-word in the movie? Or is it just a certain context? Does Hollywood pick and choose, like Kanye said? They put this box or they make this framework where everything's okay, where you can use your freedom of speech, where you can say certain things. I mean, are we really being brainwashed? I mean, what do you guys think? Let's think about this. This is interesting. Keep me let me know.
To the incarceration of Larry Hoover, I sent him articles about the relationship of Matisse and Picasso and the need for these people. You need to have that. You know, I need to go into the bar and go to Starbucks. That's a form of a modern day bar, right? And just hear Drake's song playing back to back. And Drake needs to go into that same Starbucks just in a different city and see people wearing Yeezys. And it puts us both back into the studio. And, you know, God sets up these almost similar characters, these doppelgangers. It makes me really realize God has a sense of humor. Like, why is John Galliano and Mark Jacobs the exact same human being, just placed in a different place? Or why does God have it where Bernard Arnault cannot purchase Gucci, not even through the Chinese market? God does this to remind us that we are not God. Because when you take people like Elon Musk and Bernard Arnault and Trump or Jack Ma, Putin, you take these people in their own space, in their own environments, you know, we can start to feel like gods on earth, but we are nothing in comparison to God. And we are here actually to love one another and to collaborate and to make the world a better place. There's, 1% of the world are placed in power and 99% of the world are the audience. So that 1% of the world, this idea of a United Nations, this is the world that needs to come together. This is the world that, here's the obvious go-to. Biden doesn't listen to Elon Musk. The president of the United States does not have meetings with Elon Musk. That is, hey, here, come get me. That's retarded. I know I'm not supposed to say that, Biden, but that's retarded, Biden. And it's, and obviously because I've been deemed with mental health, all this, I have the right to use whatever words that I like to use.
Well, that's interesting. So
ask another question.
Well, yeah, let me ask you on that. So you just said something very.
So here's Kanye being funny, using the word retarded and saying that, because people have deemed him, a mental patient, he could use whatever word he wants to his advantage because he's protected. So here's Kanye, being savvy on using his words, and I guess kind of subliminally throwing a jab at the media or the people who say, oh, he's mental, he's crazy, by using certain words and say, well, you can't do anything because nana boo boo, because I'm mental and I have an issue and I can say whatever I want and I'm protected by a law. So he's throwing a jab at the media. So I find that kind of funny. And I find it funny he's using it to his advantage. Me personally, I understand where he's coming from because I own my own business and I kind of rent to tenants, government-assisted tenants, and you'll be surprised, of them who play this mental health game just to kind of receive benefits. They play that mental health game to their advantage when it comes to getting out of trouble or, like I said, receiving extra benefits. So I know exactly what Kanye said when he said, since he had he corrected Piers, but he said, no, this is what you calling me. I'm not calling me this. So I know exactly what he's talking about, when it comes to, being protected when people say your mental health and, and people using it to their advantage to say certain things and being able to get away with it. Like I said, I'm a business owner, so I have people who use the system and exploit it. So it's funny that Kanye said that, and you see he gave himself a little chuckle when he said it. So I find that funny.
Of all this, I have the right to use whatever words that I like to use.
Well, that's interesting.
Ask another question.
Well, yeah, let me ask you on that. So you just said something very inflammatory about President Biden. It will, as you know, offend a lot of people, and it will particularly offend people who work in mental health. You say you should not use a word like retarded, but you say that because you yourself have had mental health issues, that entitles you to use that kind of word as an insult. Now, I would say that's an arguable point.
I've had my issue is I've had mental health allegations.
So do you believe that you have any form of mental illness?
And again, like I said, look at Piers misquoting Kanye, and Kanye corrects him and says mental health allegations, which is very key. And Kanye says that what he's really saying, he's not a mental health patient, but he suffers from mental health exhaustion, which is very, very key. Because I feel like everybody may have some type of mental exhaustion, by dealing with everyday things, So if you like Kanye said, if you felt like someone kept picking on you, kept bullying you, hitting you, I mean, we've all been there. I mean, that affects with your mental health, plenty of people have had mental breakdowns because of the job, family, kids, whatever, Let me ask you something, guys. Do you think that black people in America have a higher chance of having mental exhaustion due to the system? What do you guys think? Is a black person have a higher percentage of having mental exhaustion? I mean, here Kanye saying they use that term. They're trying to say he's crazy, this and that, and he has some type of mental health issue. But here he clearly stated transparently that mental exhaustion. And I think we all can relate to mental exhaustion. It's funny that Kanye used that word, because that word doesn't really say that something's wrong with you. It just says that, a lot of stuff is on your plate, and it wears down your mental. And, sometimes we may need a break. What do you think?
Works on itself. I can go into the Gucci store at age 18 and I just assume that people think that I'm about to steal, so I buy more things. With cancel culture, when I brought Marilyn Manson on stage with me when he was dealing with allegations, my stepbrother Marilyn was canceling himself. So many people comment on my White Lives Matter t-shirt. There's people who are saying right there in Fashion Week, when are you going home? I'm so afraid. People thought I was going to cancel myself. I'm not going to cancel myself. I'm going to keep on delivering what I feel, because guess what? It's very split opinions, by the way. If I talk to a black person that makes under $1 million a year, they really relate to the George Floyd comments and feel hurt that I would even bring it up and question the approach. They have multiple documentaries on the death of JFK, but we're just supposed to believe this one media outlet version that preyed on our trauma.
So let's talk about this, people. Do you think Kanye West was wrong for questioning the death of George Floyd and saying it just was an event by the left to get votes and push an agenda, a democratic agenda? I don't know if this is true or not, but we do know that the government will go to the extreme when it comes to political seats that need to be filled by certain political officials or very ambitious people. Do you think they'd go to that extent of the George Floyd thing to get a certain group of people just to vote for him? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys have any stories, or is there anything that has happened in the past that shows that they would go to that extent to get put in office, to get power, to the extreme? I don't know. You guys let me know. I mean, ironically, Kanye also brings up, let's think about this. He brings up JFK, saying that people can have all debates on how JFK, John F. Kennedy, was killed, but when it comes to George Floyd, we can only just have one picture. And that's kind of, when you think about it, there is a point that he's making right there. So again, do you think that the media is controlling the views, the minds of the people to have them think a certain way? Because we did see, they have video of the JFK also. A lot of people, say he was killed from inside the car. We've all heard these stories. Oh, the shot came from inside the car. It came from his own Secret Service man. We've heard all those stories. So Kanye is saying, with JFK, that was on video, and people have all these views and conspiracy theories, of him taking down the government. That's why they were mad. But when it comes to George Floyd, we can only have one. We're going to be one-sided. What do you guys think about that? I do find that very, very interesting. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking about this point. It's very, very interesting. So just let me know, guys, what you think. Should we think one-sided? Is there more to the George Floyd thing like JFK, or are we just being, triggered, emotionally triggered just to see it be a one-dimensional thinker? Let me know.
We're just supposed to believe this one media outlet version that preyed on our trauma and our pain. And then if I talk to rich black people or white people, Jew or Catholic or atheist, they're really into the Jewish media comment because it affects their business interests.
Okay, well, look,
and it was really interesting.
Let me just pick you up on the two things you've mentioned. The first one is what you said about George Floyd. And the reality of that, it's not a media interpretation of how he died, because the Hennepin County Chief Medical Examiner concluded that Floyd died from cardiopulmonary arrest. His heart stopped, complicated by the way the police restrained him and compressed his neck. Now, he also said there were other contributing conditions.
Wait.
Well, hang on, let me finish. There were other contributing conditions, narrowed arteries, high blood pressure, and fentanyl intoxication. But although these were significant conditions, he said, and things that played a role in the death, they didn't directly cause the death. The cause of death was what that policeman did with his knee to George Floyd. Person? Well, why would a coroner lie?
What makes you believe that?
Why would a coroner lie?
Because he could get paid to lie.
Yeah,
because he could get paid to lie. Because he's
I watched
in the press.
I watched it for 8 minutes.
The majority of the press.
Right, but I watched it for 8 minutes.
Now tell me this: have you seen the Candace Owens BLM documentary?
I have watched some of that documentary, but here's what I would say to you. When you watch that video of George Floyd...
No, it's not a but. It's not.
Well, I haven't watched the whole thing.
I need you to watch.
I know.
Okay,
I know what you said about... I know Candace.
I'm going to finish. La.
It's all right. You don't have to do that.
Means.
That means, I know what it means.
La means be quiet and let me finish.
Right, but you did interrupt my question.
Right, so with the BLM... No, I wasn't finished. You're pressing agenda. You haven't seen the whole thing.
I don't have an agenda. I just read you what the coroner said.
So we can have 20 different perspectives on how JFK died, but us as black people, not only can we only vote one way, we're not allowed to have any other perspectives, and that the area for George Floyd, where he passed, the murder rate is up 50%, and nothing, this is so-called movement, but it didn't move blacks anywhere.
Right, now listen.
So as a black person.
I will say there are legitimate questions about the Black Lives Matter movement, no question. But on the...
Here Kanye say that a lot of people are being swayed to only vote one way. I find that very, very interesting because black people, 95% of black people do vote Democratic. I remember back in the 19s, a little bit after the Civil War, blacks were Republicans. If you can do your own research, majority of blacks were Republican. I don't know how blacks became swayed to become Democratic, but here he says that, they try to sway a certain group of people just to vote one way. Like, if you vote another way, like something's wrong with you, that you're being, you're being not liberal, but you should be a one-dimensional thinker and just vote Democratic. What you guys think about that? We all remember the infamous Joe Biden comment, or infamous comment, when he said, "If you don't vote for me, then you ain't black." Like, what do you guys think about that? So has the left proposed this agenda that if you're black, you can only vote for me, and I'm going to help you, and you should not vote Republican, and this and that, and we all know once they get in office, them promises are gone out the window. We know that. Why do they push so hard for black people to vote Democratic? Why do you guys think that? And if you don't, then something's wrong. Then you're not black if you don't vote Democratic. It's like something's wrong with you if you, choose to use your mental faculties, to vote for someone else he may feel like have your best interest. I feel like Kanye has a point of this, because black people, at one point, like I said, they were to the right, they were Republican. All of a sudden, black people are more Democratic, and that's very, very interesting. That's very interesting. Let me know your opinions, guys. Leave them in the comments. Let me know what you think. Subscribe. Hit that like button.